Welcome everyone to New HD NYC with your host Ray K. Available on all major podcast platforms and powered by New HD Media. Now here's your host, Ray K.
Okay, New HD NYC. I got a special guest. He's a former NBA coach for 4 or 5 teams. We're going to talk about his new book, Speed Game, Fast Times in Basketball, My Fast Times in Basketball. It's my pleasure. I've known this man growing up. It was in that 1980 championship with the LA Lakers and the 76ers, first year coaching wins the championship. Coach Paul Westhead. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Ray. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. I want to talk about, Coach, your growing up years first. I mean, I read the book. It's a great read. It's one of those page-turning books. I mean, it's authentic. You could tell. I mean, you let it all loose, which is interesting. And I want you to talk about your brother growing up. I mean, you grew up poor, reading the book, and it sounds like he had a great influence on you. I'm an older brother myself, and I kind of looked out for my younger brother. So I'd just like you to just touch on that relationship with you and your brother.
Yeah, well, we grew up in West Philadelphia in a row house. So, we were, everything was kind of rough, and you had to fend for yourself and make your own friends and earn your way around. But my older brother took care of me. He had polio when he was 3 years old, or back then they called it infantile paralysis. So he had trouble running and doing things, but he was an active guy. So he used me as his, athlete that he wanted to be. So he was 5 years older than me. So we'd go to the playground and he'd get in games, and I was his runner. So we played baseball. He would bat, but he couldn't run. So then I ran for him. So I learned quickly with kids 5 years older than me, how to survive and how to be good in sports.
So you become streetwise very fast, it sounds, growing up the way you did.
No doubt about that. Yes.
Okay. Now, Coach, I wanted to talk about, just give me the 2-minute version. How are things now? This is unprecedented times. No one could have predicted this, of course. I mean, there is hope on the horizon. What's it like in California where you are now with this virus?
Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is, I'm looking out right now. It's beautiful. It's 75 degrees and sunny, and nobody is hunkered down inside and cold, and everybody in confined areas. The bad news is that the virus, even here in Southern California, seems to be still spreading. The hospitals are full. And the governor is, continuing the lockdown. So even though there's a vaccine that's being shipped, there's been no effects of that calming things down for us. Okay.
Do you see hope for next year, as most of us do? You're going to get out of this eventually? Okay.
Yeah, I think, 2021 is going to be a great year. It has to be better than this year.
I'm going to talk about the book in Speed Game. I'm fascinated by it because it sounds like it's almost like when you're a kid, you want to just get the ball and rush down the court. I mean, it's like a controlled kids game of speed, of fast break. I mean, was this taking the idea from ultimately the Boston Celtics of the 60s? I mean, I know it was a little different, but they were known as their fast break. Can you tell us how the evolution of this came into play?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to give the Celtics any credit, to being a Philadelphia guy.
Okay.
Then living and working with the LA Lakers. The Boston Celtics are not a team that we aspire to.
I got you. Okay.
Be with. But I appreciate their style of play. It's kind of interesting, the whole thing about what I do, Ray. That the genesis. It was in the 70s. I was LaSalle College. I was their head coach as a young guy. I was 30 years old. A couple of my young players wanted to play faster. I had a little point guard from Cape May, New Jersey, named Charlie Wise, who was fast as all get out. I had Joe Bryant from John Barsham High School in Philadelphia. who's the dad of Kobe Bryant, and Jelly Bean could go and run with the best of them.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I had a couple of players who really wanted to go. I spent my summers coaching in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where the teams down there love the run. So I kind of had ideas about fast break, and these players looked at me like, well, we'll show you how to do this. And then I met a coach named Sonny Allen from Old Dominion University, who gave me his little simple system of running a numbered fast break. And he said, "You're going to have to be a little crazy to do this." And I said, "Okay, I'm crazy. I'll do it." So that mixture in the 70s got me to be a fast break coach that I never gave up.
Okay, so you had to be a little crazy to do it. I mean, I could have did it too, being on that side of it, and just taking the chance. The system, and then I want to get into the Lakers and then your career and so forth. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty simple. Everyone goes to their spot. The center takes it out from what I'm reading in the book. I mean, you fly down the court. You get the rebound off, the guys sliding down. You're almost hoping they miss, it sounds, even some of the players. Talk about the system, please.
Well, the system, every player has an assigned role, and he runs that role independently of everybody else. So if I'm a wingman, what I would call my 3-man, I'm running the left side as fast as I can, independent of what the other 4 players are doing. I could care less. I'm sprinting to my spot. And what makes it work is that all 5 players are doing their role as fast as they can, not worrying about, what others are doing. And one of the things about this is that you have 5 players running as fast as they can to get a basket, but they don't know who's going to get the basket. So it's very unselfish. 5 run for 1, and you don't know who the 1 is until you get there. And of course, the point guard is speed dribbling, looking for the first open player. And if he finds whoever he finds, that player is going to shoot.
Well, I like it a lot. I mean, I played some ball. I was never at the level, NBA level. And, it's I YouTubed it because whenever I read books, I like to YouTube just to see it. And it was true to fashion with Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball and Loyola Marymount. I mean, that was what really happened. I mean, that guy got the ball out from out of bounds, and you guys shot it within 4 seconds. I mean, I timed it. I mean, that's exactly what was going on. So it's fascinating. Any of you guys, I mean, first you got to get the book, and then you got to check this out because it really is a wild style of play. It's like ultimate playground. It looks like by just watching it, and it's exciting.
Yeah, well, here's the hitch, Ray. You have analyzed it pretty good.
Okay.
And you keep saying, well, it's like, in the playground, like it would be fun. Like kids like to play this way. They like to play this way once or twice.
All right.
But to do it over and over and over.
I hear you.
So if you had 100 offensive possessions, you have to do it 100 times a game.
Right.
The number of players from, grade school level to the NBA, the number of players who were willing to do that is very, very small. I mean, maybe 2%. So that's why, I had 20 jobs in high school, college, NBA, men, women, and I got fired in 14 of them because most teams didn't want to do it, even though initially it sounded good, even though the first day they'd all raise their hand and say, yeah, we love fast break. We finally got a coach who's, is like us. And then after about 7 days, they would have a meeting, players only meeting, saying, we got to do something with this guy. We have to get rid of him. We have to change his belief.
The tired factor, I think, will kick in. I know I had a few hockey players on, and they play the 50-second shifts. They go all out, and I was thinking, why can't they go all out for 5 minutes? And my friend said, you can. I mean, you just die after 50 seconds, and then you get the next guys in. Your style, I mean, it sounds like it's an all-out thing, but it goes on for the full quarter, the 12 minutes. I mean, it's not like
exactly.
a minute. So the human can do it then.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what you're saying. The whole ice hockey concept, the 50 seconds.
Right.
And I've seen 2 ice hockey games in my life. I saw the Flyers once, and to show you how limited I was, after the second period, I got up to leave, and my friend said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, it's over," because the Zamboni was out there cleaning the ice. I thought,
Okay.
so I didn't even know they had 3 periods. But I will say this: in all sports, and since you reference ice hockey, the ice hockey players are programmed to be tired at the end of 50 seconds. So they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And basketball players, after 2 or 3 fast breaks are tired. But if you can practice to get through that, if you can punch through and resist getting tired, you could play 5 minutes. You could play 8 minutes. It's all a matter of, your will and your practice schedule.
Okay. So it's a psychological thing then, this hockey thing.
Absolutely. But you see, in basketball, it's a lot easier to pick and choose and play slow. I mean, if you're Michael Jordan, why would you play breakneck speed 100 times in a row when you could go, 50-50 and score just as easily?
Right.
I mean, that's why the great ones, they say, well, why do I have to run fast? I can go slower and score.
Okay. Well, let's fast forward. Lakers. Jack McKinnon gets hurt on the bicycle. You step in. I mean, I remember back then you looked like you were like 28 years old, but I see you were 40 or 41, 42. You had that young look. And I remember thinking, this guy's young. And so you go all the way to the championship. We all know the story. Kareem gets hurt. Magic goes in the center, even though he was probably playing all the positions. Was it because center sounded good? Let's say he's center. I know he was like all over the place, right on the court. You beat the Lakers. You talk about Jerry Buss. And you talk about some things that I never knew before, and you always have these ideas how people are, and you let it fly. I mean, it's almost like he's a George Steinbrenner type character. He didn't seem like a great guy, Jerry Buss. I mean, he's tough on negotiation. Maybe he's a businessman. I mean, did I capture that right reading it? I mean, I didn't really like him too much reading your book.
Yeah, I tried to give my impressions of how Jerry Buss dealt with me. There were the ups and downs. The ultimate down is, we're on a 5-game winning streak, and I had a conflict with Magic Johnson in a game the night before, and the next day he calls me in and fires me. So, that was sure a downer. That's the first time I've ever been fired from any place. And
so that was really the player. I had a few friends wanted me to ask you that. Was it really Magic that got you fired?
Well, the incident was the night before. So within 24 hours of me telling Magic that I didn't appreciate the way he ignored instructions at the end of a game that we almost lost because of it, and Magic disapproved of my correcting him after the game by himself, I got fired. But I think really the Lakers used that. So Magic really isn't the ultimate culprit. I think they had reason to want to fire me. They weren't happy with me. They wanted to go in other directions. So Magic was like the tipping point. So yes, it caused it, but yes, I don't think he was the deep down cause.
Okay.
But back to Jerry Buss, I will say this about him. He was a tough negotiator. He resisted some things, and ultimately, if I wanted to do something and he didn't agree, he finally would say, well, okay, it's your decision.
Okay.
And that was his way of saying, if this doesn't go right, I'm going to blame you.
So you knew it. Right.
Yeah, but the ultimate thing upon reflection with Jerry Buss, even though he fired me, was he's the best owner I ever had.
Okay.
He was committed to getting the best players, and money was not a factor with him. This was before the salary cap.
Okay.
So the NBA, the owner who put out the most money got the best players. And that's how we got Mitch Kupchak from the Washington Bullets. He just ponied up and said, I'll pay whatever it takes to get Mitch Kupchak. And he did. So if you're a coach and you have an owner who's going to get the best players, you have
Okay.
to like and respect him.
I got you. Okay. It's funny because the persona seems a little bit on the goofy side when you see him on TV, and then but there's the other side. So I know he did well business wise, and and everything you just said with getting good players. Kareem. He comes across very great. I mean, I know he was the captain. I always thought Magic took over. Even in the first year, but it sounded like he tried taking over in the second year. So you really go into that tension between those two, which I never knew about. I mean, Magic almost seemed a little bit on the selfish side, to be nice. Kareem seemed like an upstanding guy, sensitive as you said. But am I getting that right? I mean, I was really surprised on some of the selfishness about Magic. In the timeout of the huddle, not paying attention in the thing, almost like a Scottie Pippen thing with the Bulls in the '90s. It was a little bit surprising. So I mean, you depicted it like it was. So is that correct?
Well, on the one hand, Kareem was just a terrific performer.
Okay.
You have to establish that in his career, at least the years that I was with him, he was a little bit standoffish. He would he didn't have time for the media. He didn't have time for fans. He just wanted to stay focused and perform. Magic, on the other hand, wanted to perform and had time for everybody. He mixed with the fans. He mixed with Jerry Buss and his friends. So there was two different ways of going about it. And Kareem was much more focused on his task. Magic was much more political and much more active in the community. So I mean, neither one of them were wrong, but they were trying to function in different directions. And Kareem was very limited in his commentary. When he spoke, everyone listened, but he didn't speak much. And Magic eventually took over the team, and as the years went on, it became Magic's team.
Okay. Are you still in touch with both of those gentlemen right now?
Yeah. I see and interact with Kareem. He actually wrote a praise for the book, so it was very kind of him to do that for me. And Magic, about 9 months ago, called me on the phone at my home and invited me to Hawaii for a celebration of the Lakers of the '80s. Unfortunately, it all has been postponed, canceled because of COVID. But I expect probably in a year they'll redo it and we'll meet again in Hawaii.
That's cool. I thought it was fascinating too that you picked Pat Riley. I mean, you are, Coach, one heck of a talent scout. I mean, to pick Pat Riley, who, we know the story. I mean, he seemed like he changed his aura later on with the nice suits and the slick back hair compared to when I see him on the bench with you. He turns out to be, I guess, top 3 head coaches of all time. You pick him as your assistant. Can you tell us how you picked him? I thought that was a great story.
Put up the next day for a shoot around the day of the game, and it was either me or the trainer. So they picked me because the trainer really had a lot of coaching experience. Because back then in the NBA, you only had one assistant coach. It wasn't like 14 assistants that they now have. So after I'm on the job for a couple of weeks, I want to get somebody to work with me. And I went to Jerry Buss and talked to him about it. And I said, talk to Pat Riley and he might want to do this. He was a color man then for Chick Hearn on the TV. And Buss resisted. He said, I don't know if this is the right selection. Talk to me later about it. So after about 10 days, I stayed with the Riley recommendation and he said, okay. So I hired Pat because I knew him from the games, and he was an NBA guy, and I figured he'd know players and he'd know how the NBA operates. So it was a good choice. It wasn't like I was a genius. I just picked him because he seemed like a good guy.
Okay. Well, turned out to be a pretty good move, in hindsight. I want to go forward to Loyola with Hank Gathers and a little bit of that, because it seems like your speed game hits full force. You got the right guys. I mean, I YouTube those games with LSU. I mean, they're fascinating. It's fascinating stuff, and you have the team all gelling on that type of game. Talk about what it was like with Hank and Bo Kimball. I know it's an open-ended question, but just we got about 5 minutes, but just we have to talk a little bit about them.
Well, Ray, my whole coaching career really turned around. They came to visit, and when I saw them on their visit, I showed them some game tape, and they took me outside to the parking lot, and they said, "Come on now, Coach, tell us the truth. You fixed that tape. Nobody plays like that. Come on, you're a Philly guy, and we're Philly guys, so tell us the truth." I said, "No, that's the game." So they said, "If you play that fast, we're coming." And their arrival, the arrival of Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball, and also I had a transfer from UCLA, Corey Gaines. They changed everything. We went from averaging 90 points a game to 122 points a game. The speed game just took off because they were talented and they embraced the run. They were willing to push through every possession. So that combo, we could play teams like LSU, and I think that we were tied at the end of regulation at like 138, like with Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Jackson. It didn't matter. We were going to play that speed game and just score.
Well, you go into great detail. It's great reading it. You guys, all the viewers, you got to check it out. It goes in a lot more detail about a lot of things. I know we got to let you go in a few minutes. You talk about some crazy stuff with Spencer Haywood. I mean, you said it. I mean, he was out there, right? I mean, can I say what he said, or should we have the viewers read the book?
No, that's fine. I mean, my interaction with Spencer got off to not a very good start, because when Jack McKinney was injured, and I took over the team, about a week later, Spencer came to me and said, "Coach, Jack McKinney promised to start me, and I wasn't starting Spencer." And I said, "Well, that might have been McKinney's arrangement, but it's not mine. I'm going to play who I think is going to help us win games." So he may have had a point. I mean, sometimes coaches do make arrangements when they acquire players, but I was not aware of that. So Spencer really wasn't happy being a guy coming off the bench, and he had a great background, but things kind of went downhill. He wasn't in the best of health. He had some substance problems that eventually showed up, and part of his delusion is he actually got a couple people from Detroit to come in and try and run me off the road and do me in. Unfortunately, he talked to his mother, and his mother said, "Do not do this, Spencer." So he didn't. But it all turns around at the end. Years later, he came back and apologized to me. And I said, "Well, I'm really glad to see you again, Spencer." And he said, "Are you really, Coach?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Otherwise, I'd be dead." So he had a good heart. He just couldn't handle not being the star. And with a team like Kareem and Magic and Jamal Wilkes, we didn't need a star. We needed a role player.
Right. Are you the first coach ever to win an NBA title and a WNBA title? Has anyone ever did that?
I believe so. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, and of course, some of that is because many NBA coaches don't have WNBA experience. I did both. And it's kind of interesting. We won the title in 1980 with the Lakers, and I thought it was going to be kind of easy. This is going to be fun. We can win many more. 28 years later, I won my next title with the Phoenix Mercury and Diana Taurasi and the WNBA.
Right. No, that was a great part of the book, you going into that. I mean, the whole book is great. Speed game, My Fast Times in Basketball. Is that a play off My Fast Times Richmond High? My Fast Times in Basketball?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I thought
Yeah.
I
My
did that.
daughter made that suggestion
Okay,
to me, and I said,
okay.
"All right, let's do that."
Coach, last thing, and I'm going to let you go because you're the perfect guy for this. Because I'm a Celtic fan, and I know you're Philly, so we bang a little bit there. I was a huge Havlicek fan,
Right.
and Cowens, and that was my era. Russell Chamberlain. I mean, I hear it's a silly argument because they were both great. I mean, can you say who was better, or who would you pick? Russell had the one. We all know the story of the comparison. What's your take on that? And
Yeah.
then I'll let you go.
Yeah. Well, you really pushed me because, I am from Philly. I saw Wilt Chamberlain when he was a high school player at Overbrook High. I actually was at West Catholic High School when we played in the city championship game against Overbrook, and we beat them. It was one of the 2 or 3 games that Wilt ever lost as a high school player. He was just so gifted and talented. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was in another world, the things that he could do. But the difference is, and if you calibrate, talent by winning championships, who can deny Bill Russell? I mean, his legacy is he wins championships. He doesn't do it fancy. He doesn't do it, he's just a clever, tough, hardworking guy. So, I'd be split right down the middle. But if you're saying to me, who's the most talented player? Wilt Chamberlain.
Right.
Who's the winner? If you want to have on your team to win the championship, Bill Russell.
Okay. So there you go. Okay.
But I'd take John Havlicek in a heartbeat.
Okay. I say the most underrated.
Hondo was my favorite.
Okay. He was underrated, I always thought. You don't hear him much anymore, but when you saw him play, I had him better than West and those guys. I mean, from what I've seen, he was something else in his prime, right?
He's a spectacular player. Yep. Yeah.
Coach,
I would take John Havlicek on my team.
Okay. Coach Paul Westhead, the Speed Game, my fast times in basketball. Thanks for coming out. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, Ray. It's my pleasure.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of New HD NYC. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform.